Hello guys and welcome to today's Los Blancos podcast. Today's video we've got two different sections. First section we've got the Rayo review, which obviously it wasn't the result that we wanted. 1-1 against Rayo Vallecano. 1-1 against Rayo Vallecano, and it was not a great performance. But the second section we'll be talking about Kylian Mbappe and the news in the midweek, which we normally don't talk about Mbappe, but it's pretty big news. So I think we've got to talk about it this time. We can't. There's no point in dodging it. So first section. Let's begin by talking about the Rayo Vallecano draw, because going away to Vallecas is always difficult. We always struggle. We always definitely struggle against Rayo Vallecano, especially away from home. And earlier this season, it also ended in a draw, 0-0, if you recall, and that game wasn't particularly great either. It was a strange game because Rayo really didn't. They couldn't create any chances of significant quality, I would say. I think they had chances obviously, and neither did Real Madrid. Real Madrid did not create anything. I mean, past the 20th minute, I would say Real Madrid did not create anything of significance that I think we should have scored from. And so overall, I just thought it looked a bit lethargic. It looked a bit like we were running out of ideas. Brahim Diaz was quite quiet today. I thought, especially after the midweek performance where he was fantastic and he won us the game against Leipzig. He was quiet today, and it wasn't what we wanted from Brahim Diaz. We wanted him to step up and give us a good performance there. It wasn't great from him. Vinny really couldn't get into the game. He was often doubled and stopped in his tracks by the Rayo defenders, and that he didn't really have any chances to get himself going. And then obviously Joselu was good. He got the goal, but there's only so much Joselu can do. So overall, what do you think of the result against Rayo Vallecano?
Well, I believe that it's a game that sometimes happens to us each season. I think maybe at least 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 games for a season, even when we are having a good season, we should always deliver a performance like that, if I'm being honest. So I'm not shocked. I'm just a bit disappointed, but I'm not too disappointed because I know what the team is capable of. I know that we are dealing with a lot of suspensions and injuries, and we fought till the end, like Ancelotti said, but I didn't think that we were effective. I didn't think that the substitutions were correct, in my opinion, to even make any changes to the game. I believe that the team, they were subdued, they were a bit quiet, and after the goal that Vallecano scored, I think they were the better team, in my opinion. I believe that after the goal, they had better possessions, but they didn't penetrate our defense, in my opinion. I think that with an entire second string back line, I think we did okay, and they should be commended on that, if I'm being honest. I think it's a simple analysis, if I'm being honest. We weren't at our best. I think that we scored early, and I think that maybe it could have helped us, but after the penalty, it was a bit difficult because they dropped a bit deep and they were a bit tighter when Marcus Vinicius and Diaz and all those excellent players that we have. Maybe Rodrygo should have come on a bit sooner. Maybe Goulet should have come on a bit sooner, because it was clear that we lacked something different, more players to drive forward and more players to play in the half spaces high up the pitch in the attacking third. So I believe that, I don't think the starting 11 was bad, but I just think that we could have made better changes and a bit faster, in my opinion. But it happens to us, like I said, at least 3 or 4 times for the season. I think that this is maybe just one of them, if I'm being honest. But without Bellingham, sometimes Diaz would show up, but of course it was a bit quieter of a game for him today. I won't say any of our performances were bad, in my opinion. I don't think we can pick on anyone and say that they disappointed us today. But I just think that without Bellingham, in those gritty kind of matches, or in those tense, difficult matches when you need the control of the midfield, or control in those little moments in the attacking third, especially when Vinicius and Diaz or even Rodrygo is quiet. You need that guy like Bellingham to perform, even Benzema. So I believe that this reminded me of one of the performances that we would have made when Benzema was injured, like a couple of seasons ago, or maybe a season ago, when we would go away and lost all these matches without Benzema. It's something like that, in my opinion. So that's my takeaway from the game.
Yeah, I mean that's spot on. Obviously, I saw the tweet by RealMadridCommittee on Twitter, and I thought, yeah, it's spot on. Like last season when Benzema was not healthy, he was obviously injured quite a lot of the time. We were missing him. We were missing that link from the midfield to the attack, and Benzema offers that because he drops deep, he does all that, and obviously this season we've replaced that with Jude Bellingham playing that role. Or ultimately, playing that hold up role, playing that link up play, doing all that stuff. When Jude Bellingham isn't in, Brahim Diaz is great at some things. Brahim Diaz taking on his man he's fantastic at that. You saw that midweek where he morphed into Messi for that one bit, and Brahim Diaz is fantastic for that. However, for what we need to replace Jude Bellingham when Bellingham is not in, which is a guy who's going to be providing the link between the midfield and the attack, I think Brahim Diaz is not that guy, to be totally honest. I think Brahim Diaz, you're better off playing him in the front two. And I think you can often get the better performances. Obviously, he's capable of the individual moments of brilliance like he did midweek, but I don't think that's the correct role for him. I don't think it is the correct role for him, and I think you obviously get a bit of that progression with Fede. Fede provides so much for us down the right hand side, but through the middle, or slightly to the left hand side, where Bellingham would deploy it. I think we've just got to find a different solution. I think a solution could be that you play Luka Modric there. I think Modric would provide that. I think Modric is good inside and outside of the box. He's obviously so technically brilliant that I think he's capable of doing that. And obviously, I think on the ball, he's got everything needed to replace Jude Bellingham in that role. You talk about Arda Güler, but obviously clearly Ancelotti doesn't trust Arda right now, so that's unlikely. And other than that, there isn't too many solutions that we can look at. I think the problem is without Jude Bellingham, there isn't this kind of guy to be the middleman between the midfield and the attack, if you get what I mean. I think we've got distinct midfielders, distinct attackers. There isn't a guy there to be the link in between, and Bellingham's the only guy. So that's where I think we look a bit shy, look a bit short of ideas, is because I just think there is a disconnect between the midfield and the attack in these type of games, and I just think Rayo know how to defend. Let's be honest. Even if there's a new manager today, Inigo Perez, he's obviously only not had too much time, but they know how to defend. They've instinctively know how to defend, and I think they knew how to deal with us, especially without a Jude Bellingham playing through the line. So I think that's where for me it went wrong in terms of the attack. What do you think about why we couldn't really score a goal today, or really couldn't create chances?
Yeah. I believe that sometimes in these matches you have to maybe try something new, because no player can replace Bellingham, or no player can replace Benzema or Vinicius, maybe except for Rodrygo if you try new things. But if I'm being honest, sometimes that's why at the start of last season the trade with Vinicius, Rodrygo and Valverde ahead in the striking position was effective, at least for the first half of the season, because no one expected it. And we basically tried something new, and Valverde and Vinny and Rodrygo, they all complemented each other at the start of the season. Sometimes you have to try something new. I'm not saying you have to go back to that, because I think teams have figured that out, if I'm being honest. But sometimes you just maybe have to try something new, maybe introduce players a bit faster, in my opinion. I think Güler should have been introduced a bit faster. If you looked at some of his cameos, where he can drive in those tight spaces, I think maybe we may have needed that within the last 20 minutes, maybe the last 25 minutes, if I'm being honest. I think waiting until after minute 65 to make your full substitution was maybe a bit too slow, in my opinion. I think Joselu, when he starts, it's clear that he's going to play the entire 90 minutes if we are chasing a goal, because of course he's a tall striker, so we know he's going to stay on the pitch. That's why I believe that Joselu is better coming off the bench. I've been saying this since the start of the season, even when he was starting over Diaz or coming on for Diaz. His skill set is a bit limited. He scored a goal today. His skill set is a bit limited, but he won't do anything much outside of score, or maybe he does some good defensive work sometimes, or he wins a few headers, which is good and something we needed. But I think without him, we know that he's going to stay on the pitch when you're chasing a game, and you have to make your substitutions around him. That's why sometimes it's better coming on. But that's for big games. But in these matches where you are expected to win, I think he's a striker that you need to score these goals. It's the level he would have played at last year. These type of matches against Valenciano, he never started in the Champions League before, so he's not a Champions League starting striker. But in these matches, I think he's a starter. I think he scored the goal which was expected. So I must say he did what he should have done. But with Joselu not being substituted, it gave us the opportunity to introduce new players like Kule and stuff like that, But it was too late, in my opinion. It was just a bit too late for them to have an impact. Gule coming on with 3 minutes to replace 6 minutes additional time. How much of the ball is he going to get to make an impact? He had a few moments with the ball, but it wasn't anything impactful, in my opinion. And I also believe that, maybe Rodrygo on the wing, on the right-hand side, he's a bit limited, to doing what he normally does. So, of course, I know that we're going to speak more about that in the Mbappe discussion, Rodrygo's position, but, of course, he's still a talented player, but his impact is a bit limited. And with Bellingham now in the team, he's needed less behind the striker, in my opinion. So it's a bit of a concern for me with Rodrygo. I know we would have spoken about that personally in terms of his positioning and stuff like that. But in relation to this game, there's not much you can add on the fact that we missed Bellingham. It was subdued with less talented players on the field. Of course, the other attackers, it's easier for them to be neutralized, in my opinion. So I think it's as simple as that, against Sevilla is another decent team defensively when they play Madrid. I don't know what happens when they play Madrid. They play so poor sometimes, especially this season. But against Madrid, they're going to have their A game. Luckily for us, this game is at the Bernabeu, so I believe that Diaz, Rodrygo, Vinicius is going to play that game. But most likely, I think, if I am Manchester for the next game with all these players suspended, I think Valverde should play the right of midfield, Diaz on the left, with Vini and Rodrygo in the two, with Chouameni and Toni Kroos in midfield if Antonio Rudiger comes back. So hopefully he's back. According to when he got injured, this would have been the last game he'd have been missing. So hopefully he can return this for the next game with Nacho at centre back and Lucas and Mendy. I believe. I have no Modric Future playing. I think he was okay today. He's seeing a lot of maybe big podcasts or big Madrid pages or big Madrid channels saying that he wasn't effective today, but who was really effective today? I think he was the best of the two fullbacks. He was making movements forward, and that's something positive.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it wasn't like no one played well, no one played bad, no one played well. It was really average from everybody involved in this game, and I think Fran Garcia, I don't think you can pick him out as this guy that we should chase after him, because what's the alternative? The alternative was Mendy, and Mendy was not helping us win this game, to be totally honest. So, you can't really pick Fran Garcia out as exceptionally bad or anything. He was just he obviously provided us what he normally provides us with, but it wasn't enough, to be totally honest, in this game. And overall, nobody provided us with enough in this game. So I think we should move on to Luka Modric, because I think Luka Modric is a point of discussion, and I think it's been a point of discussion for a few weeks now, and it's about his minutes, because his minutes have really declined. Because if you remember last year, he was playing like a maniac every single week. You're talking about 90 minutes for Luka Modric, and it's just been such a dramatic change in minutes for Luka Modric, because the fact is we play a 4-man midfield, and he's the 6th man. He's not even the 5th man in the midfield, because that's obviously whoever drops out between Camavinga, Tchouameni, Kroos, Valverde, and Bellingham. So it's his minutes have just just dropped out of nowhere, and it just feels like it does feel like I personally do think it's acceptable, because I just think he is at this point in his career, he is the sixth best midfielder in this team. But I just think the way Ancelotti has not given him minutes, like the midweek game against Leipzig, we had no control over that match. And we really needed Modric to come on. He was not even used. So that's a game where you're like, okay, why hasn't Modric come on? You're talking about last week where we played Girona. He didn't play any significant minutes. The week before, Atletico Madrid, same thing, didn't play any significant minutes. It's becoming a theme where Luka Modric is not playing these games. And I'm just thinking, at the start of the season, we're talking Kroos and Modric can't play together. Fair enough. Kroos has obviously worked his way back into the team with his excellent performances. I'm just feeling like Luka Modric, it wasn't great today from Luka. I thought Modric was average, just like the rest of the team, which is obviously not going to do him any favours. But it does look like there is only one ending to this season, which is that Luka Modric leaves. And I don't know where he goes after that, to be totally honest, because he doesn't strike me as someone that would accept a Saudi move or go to America, for example. I think he'd be happy to go back to Croatia, go back to Dinamo Zagreb, or go to Inter Milan, because he can still contribute at a high level. But I just feel like it does look like it's only going one way, and that is to his departure from Real Madrid, because I think he's got plenty of football left in him, to be totally honest. So I would love to renew Modric for another year if he wants to, but I just don't think at this point in time he wants to be renewed because of the minutes. And I don't think Ancelotti can realistically afford him any minutes, because the other guys are playing better than him. The other guys offer something much different to him, and I just don't know if what Modric brings is what we need right now, to be totally honest. So, what are your thoughts about Modric's situation right now?
Yeah, I think we were a bit wrong in 2021 when we said that. I think we were on a podcast when it just started. And I think I would have asked you if you would have swapped Mason Mount for Luka Modric. I think people would have said yes.
Oh no.
But I think Modric would have, that's when Mason Mount would have just dominated us. Kai Havertz in the Champions League. I think we were basically saying that we needed to move on from Tony and Luka starting together. And I believe that Mason was one of the best young players in the world. We would have stated that Modric and Tony starting together. That timeline is gone, and Modric would have had 2 wonderful seasons and proved to everyone that he's still one of the best in the world. But I think this time it's a bit different because of the other players that we have on the pitch. I didn't think that we had anyone who could have replaced him, in my opinion, previously. But now I think that we have many players who can maybe drive with the ball from deep, maybe take the game when we have a difficult match and just turn the game on its head, maybe like Bellingham and he has a swing. Well, they are different players in different positions, but it's quite similar. I think that's why I believe that the players that we have now, they're showing exactly what they can contribute, and the young players who can make an impact, like Kula, Nico Paz, who can make an impact on the right side of the midfield, Valverde as well. I think that it's clear that his timeline is finishing in 2021. Valverde wasn't like one of the best midfielders in the world. We didn't have Kule, we didn't have Nico Paz in the academy. Kamavinga and Chouameni, they were not in the team. We didn't even have Bellingham. We wouldn't have dreamed of having all these players. The fact that we do now, I think it's easier now to move on from Modric, and it's easier for him to say that he can leave and the timeline is over compared to like 2 years ago. So it's a bit 2 or 3 years ago, because a lot of time has passed. So I think that it shows that it's a bit disappointing that he is gone.
The thing is, I don't want to let Modric go, and I don't want to see him stay too long and for things to turn sour. I think that is what's happened.
I think my apologies, but I think he might go maybe to a German team. I think that might suit him well, in my opinion. I think Bayern Munich, if I'm need a midfielder.
I've always got this image of Modric at Inter Milan. I don't know why. I just always thought that's like a move that would always happen for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, because Inter Milan, Juventus, AC Milan, all these teams, if I'm being honest, would take these players coming to the end of their career. So Modric at Inter or maybe Juventus, it is even a possibility for me. I would still like to see him play in one of the top teams.
Yeah, I think I know Modric can still keep going because when you call upon him, call upon him for big games, I think he can still run the midfield. But I just think after the end of this season, I think it probably is time up at Real Madrid for Modric. I don't. He can still be a starter for a club at a top level. It's just because Real Madrid are stacked. They are so stacked in this midfield. It's just like we can't play him. We just cannot give him the minutes that he deserves, and that's just what's going to happen when you've got such good midfielders in such great abundance. I just think someone's going to be the victim, and I think 38-year-old Luka Modric, who's coming to the end of the timeline, is obviously not going to be favoured over, I don't know, 20-year-old Camavinga, 21-year-old Camavinga, 23-year-old Aurelien Tchouameni. These guys are not going to be dropped ahead instead of Modric. So I feel sorry for Modric because this is how you never want it to end for your legends, because we've done this so many times to other legends before where it's boiled over and it ended this way. But he can still go, he can still do something elsewhere, but I just don't know. I think it's probably done for him here, and I just don't want to see it happen. To be totally honest, because we've been bracing for this, like you said, we've been bracing for this for years now, because he's continued. He's just continued plodding on and playing at this high level. When it's finally happened, when we finally transitioned the midfield, it just feels like it just doesn't feel good. It really doesn't. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. We're probably gonna let him go this summer. He's probably gonna leave this summer. The situation isn't great for him right now, but Ancelotti just can't do anything to help him at this current moment in time. So what can you do? Let's talk about the defence, because I thought they were quite decent today. I thought Lucas Vazquez dealt with his side quite well. I thought Tchouameni, Nacho played quite solid, which is quite contrasting to the last few weeks where he's been really dodgy. I thought Tchouameni was solid as well, and I thought Fran Garcia. Obviously, we talked about Fran Garcia already. I thought these guys were pretty decent. Lunin made some solid saves as well. I mean, the penalty shout, people have been saying it's not a penalty. I think it is a penalty, to be totally honest. It is poor from Camavinga. I mean, it is one of those situations like, well, we can't really do too much, but you just can't leave your hand in there, to be totally honest. You can't leave your hand in there in case that happens. So yeah, I think it's unfortunate for Camavinga, but it is a penalty in my opinion. And obviously the red card from Carvajal, I thought it was stupid from Carvajal. The first yellow card was stupid, where he lashed. Oh, was it for dissent though? It was for dissent against the referee. That was stupid. And then after that, you can't leave your hand out. I hate it. When players put their hand out to try and hold off the defender or whatever. It's always going to be a yellow card. Carvajal should have known that, and at that point in the game state, it was probably done. So Carvajal getting a red card, it really doesn't help us. Obviously, Camavinga's now got yellow card accumulation, so that's now a problem for us to deal with next time against Sevilla. Defense is looking even more bare bones. We have got news that Eder Militao will be returning in the next few weeks, which is great news in that eventuality, but obviously that's amongst the many other bad news. Rodrygo's obviously coming back next week, hopefully as long as he doesn't aggravate it. But yeah, it really isn't looking good. What are your thoughts on the defense today?
Like I said, I think we Blancos a good team, and we actually limited them with a makeshift defense. So I have no complaints about the defense, in my opinion. Of course, the players suspended is the issue, but with Tony coming back and Germany still available, I think we will be fine next week from the defensive aspect. I don't think Sevilla will trouble us defensively that much. My main concern is without Bellingham again next week, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I mean, Sevilla have got tools. I mean, they got a guy up front who, I mean, I found this story really interesting where they've promoted this kid who's not really a kid. He's 23 years old, Isaac Romero from their B team, and their B team isn't as good as our B team. Their B team plays in the fourth tier of Spanish football, and they've promoted this guy who clearly hasn't really caught the eye of any manager before him enough to promote him, and he's just coming straight into their team. Isaac Romero, I'm talking about, by the way. Isaac Romero has come into their team, and he's been exceptional. He's been truly exceptional for them, and he's really saved their season. I mean, I found that really interesting. He's a striker, but he's got good link-up play. I've just found that really out of the ordinary. You don't see many of those stories in modern day football, and he wasn't even that great in the B team. From what I heard, he was just a guy in their B team. So I just found that really extraordinary. But yeah, next week against Sevilla, obviously Sevilla are always going to cause us problems. But even no matter what state they're in, you know, whether they're in relegation fights or whether they're challenging for top four, they're going to cause us problems. It's obviously in the Bernabeu, so that's going to help us a little bit. But Jude Bellingham's ruled out for next week. That's going to be a problem. But we just got to carry on. Obviously, Valencia next week as well after that. But yeah, I think that's all I've got to say on Sevilla. And you know, last week we won against Girona. It was a fantastic performance. One of the best performances I've seen from Real Madrid this season. It was inevitable we were going to drop points in this game now. Straight after a win against our title rivals. It's a classic Real Madrid hurdle, where the game after you beat your title rivals, you go and trip up against Rayo Vallecano 1-1. So yeah, have you got anything else to say on this game? If you want to move on to the Mbappe section.
Now, yeah, on this game, I think we've covered basically everything.
Yeah. Okay. So that is it for this section. Let's move on to Mbappe, because this is big news, because on Thursday or on Wednesday, I think it was on Thursday, where it was announced Kylian Mbappe had let know Nasser Al-Khelaifi that he was going to leave at the end of the season. He gave him the letter. He told him, and that is that. Fabrizio Romano, David Ornstein, Mario Cortajana, all these guys have reported that Kylian Mbappe will be leaving at the end of the season. Now, I mean, we kind of knew this, but we kind of didn't, because it's Kylian Mbappe. This is obviously huge difference, because it is coming from Fabrizio's mouth, and it wasn't just regurgitated news. And I'm really happy with that. I'm really happy that we finally got some Mbappe news that isn't, oh, Mbappe is considering staying at PSG this week. Oh no, he's coming back to Madrid next week, and it's been repetitive, but finally we've got some different news, and I'm excited. I think this is what you want to hear from Mbappe's camp, and I think this is finally what we want to hear. So, in terms of your thoughts, what are your initial thoughts about Mbappe? Because we've been bracing for this for 3 years now, basically, maybe 4, and we've kind of known that he was going to end up here, but it's finally going to happen, as long as he doesn't switch to Arsenal last minute. What are your thoughts on this Mbappe announcement?
I think it's basically now or never. I think that we have covered this so much times, that, I think we both know what we're going to say to each other when we're speaking about Mbappe and how does he fit into the team, in my opinion. I think it's basically now or never, whether if it happens or not. Because I think if he chooses another team over Madrid, then most likely it's a 5 or 4 year contract, and he'd be close to 30. And I don't think that when his other contract finishes, I don't think that if he turns us down again, I think that's it, because he's now 25, and I think that's it, if I'm being honest. So if he finally comes, I'm just happy that the entire scandal is over, in my opinion. I believe that if he comes, yes, he's better than Vinicius, he's better than Rodrygo, so I think having him in the team would be effective, and hopefully this time he has Vinicius and Rodrygo and Diaz and all these talented attackers to complement him, in my opinion. Of course, Vinicius and Rodrygo are strictly left players, not strictly left players, but in Rodrygo's case, but they're more on the left, but they are more creators, in my opinion. They like to give chances to their teammates And in my opinion, Vinicius is not a selfish player. Sometimes he makes bad choices with the ball, but in terms of his selflessness, when there's a teammate in a better position to score a goal, Vinicius always passes it most of the times if he sees them. So similar to Rodrygo and Diaz, in my opinion. I think this time I think that they would be more creators and maybe not goal scorers, but in Bellingham as well. With scoreless, it's quite simple to understand that Mbappe will be the focal point of the attack, and maybe Bellingham might be the main man in midfield to link it together. But of course, we all know it's going to take a hit on Vinicius and Rodrygo in terms of their goal scoring, and Diaz as well in terms of his minutes. But I'm not concerned about guys like Diaz and Goulet. I think they will still get minutes, but especially with Tony and Luka leaving, in my opinion, within the next 2 seasons, I believe that we don't need any other midfielders. Unless there's a good market opportunity for someone like Musiala or Fritz, in my opinion, then you go after it. But I don't think we need any other midfielders. So I think naturally guys like Diaz and Bellingham and Goulet would start dropping and playing a bit deeper. So I'm not concerned about the minute allocation to them. Of course, Endrick would get minutes as a 9 in the future. With Joselu, I think if he stays, he's going to have one more season and that's it for him. Because his minutes will drop and he's not going to score that amount of goals as he did this season with Mbappe and Endrick and all of these guys in the team. You have to feel a bit bad for him, but we all know Joselu would have knew what he was coming in to do. For one season until we get a striker, I think he would accept that. If you would have asked him 3 years ago, 5 years ago, if he would accept that, I think he would say yes. So I think he knew what he came for, especially with the fact that he came on a 1-year deal. It shows that it's like a transition. He's a transition striker. In relation to players leaving, like you said, maybe Rodrygo might want more minutes if he's on the bench. If you have to play Bellingham and Mbappe, Vinicius as a 3. I think it's going to be a bit difficult for Rodrygo because he's been so important for us and he is so important for us. And I think he will still remain important for us. But it is clear that Vinicius and Mbappe is better than him. But I do still believe that they can still work. Maybe he might play a bit deeper sometimes. In like a 4-4-2, he might play left up to 4-4-2 or right up to 4-4-2. But I still think that Ancelotti can make it work, and if there's one coach who can make it work, it's Ancelotti, in my opinion. I think it's still too early to tell what's going to happen because we didn't know that Bellingham would score all these goals. We didn't know that he would replace Benzema in the team in a 4-4-2 diamond or 4-4-2 formation. So it's in my opinion, it's a bit too early to speculate what's going to happen to Rodrygo because Ancelotti is a coach who can make it work and Rodrygo is steady enough. I think that's what I have to say in relation to Mbappe, if I'm being honest. It's really early to tell how he's going to impact the team, but I think playing with these guys is different to playing with guys like Cavani, Neymar, Messi, because these guys, I wouldn't say they're not legends yet, but they are world-class players who is willing to function in a team. In my opinion, I can see them maybe allowing Mbappe to be the main player, hit the penalties and stuff like that. So they've been quite open in wanting him to come, so I'm not seeing it. Hopefully there isn't any issues. I would at least expect one of maybe Rodrygo, Diaz or Goulet to at least leave in the future as happens. It's football, like you would have told me with Maria and Rizal and all these guys. So it's football and it could happen, but I'm sure he's going to come to make the team better.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, I've had a little bit of worries because of the fact that Kylian Mbappe has proven to be a bit of a dictator in Paris, and I think my worries have been eased by the fact that Carlo Ancelotti's obviously signed that new 2-year deal into 2026. So I don't think that's going to be an issue because as long as Carlo Ancelotti's around, players are going to be happy. To be totally honest, I think players will be happy, and Carlo will find a way to fit them in. I think Carlo's fantastic at doing that. That's his best ability. His best ability is the player management, knowing how to appease everyone. And I think we're obviously having these concerns about Rodrygo being appeased, I think there are minutes. There are minutes to be had. You know, the La Liga minutes, the Champions League minutes. We're talking about a lot of these minutes are gonna come, and we're talking about best 11. We're talking about best 11s for for those big matches. However, you know, not every game's going to be a big match. You're going to be rotating, and injuries going to happen. Injuries are going to happen. We've seen Vinny being injured twice this season, twice having two lengthy injuries. So I think there are going to be injuries to be had. There's going to be injuries, and that's part of football, especially with the fixture congestion these days. You know, you're gonna have injuries about as well. So personally, I'm not going to be worried for Rodrygo right now. For as long as Ancelotti's here, I'm not worried about Rodrygo leaving, to be totally honest. I think Rodrygo's fantastic. And beyond that, you're talking about, I think if we look at what best 11 is, I think we'll discuss this more in the summer when hopefully Mbappe signs. We don't know about Mbappe. I've still got that bit of like, Mbappe might not come, but hopefully when Mbappe comes this summer, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it, the system more in depth. But I think in terms of our best 11 right now, you've got Vinny, you've got Mbappe, you've got Bellingham, you've got in the midfield as well. In the midfield, you'd go for Bellingham. I would personally go for Toni Kroos if he extends his stay, but we still don't know about that. He still hasn't decided, so you never know. It could be Camavinga there, and then you obviously have Fede and Tchouaméni. So you're looking at Camavinga dropping out at the starting 11, which I don't have a problem with right now because it's inevitable. Toni Kroos leaving is inevitable at this point, so whether it is this year or next year. And then in terms of Rodrygo, there are minutes to be had. He's a fantastic player, and you can switch things up per opponent. It gives you options, and if we recall the Real Madrid teams of the past, look at 16-17. We had Morata on the bench. You had Isco on the bench. You had was James Rodriguez still at the club?
Yes, James on the bench.
Yeah.
Kovacic on the bench.
Yeah. So all these guys were still on the bench, and obviously James left the following season to Bayern. But all of these guys were still there. They were still contributing. And Bale got injured constantly, which is quite repetitive during the stay.
I think that's why Isco got into the 11 initially for the Diamond.
Yeah. So you get these circumstances which obviously will change, and if we compare what Rodrygo is, I think Rodrygo to Isco is a nice comparison, not in terms of play style or anything like that, but in terms of his role at the club. I think that's a nice comparison, and I think that's what you want Rodrygo to be. He will be the 12th man basically, and he'll be the guy to come in straight away. And I think, although that's not ideal for Rodrygo, I think he'll make it work. I think Carlo Ancelotti will make it work. I think I'm confident to have Carlo Ancelotti. This is one of the reasons why I would want Carlo Ancelotti to stay. I saw. In terms of that, what are your thoughts on our best 11 coming into next season? Because we're pretty stacked in these attacking options and midfield options.
With Mbappe, I don't think, in my opinion, that Camavinga makes it. I prefer Rodrygo in the 11 over Camavinga. Maybe if Tony stays, I think he is a good option to have as a starter, in my opinion. So it's going to be maybe Vinicius, Bellingham, Rodrygo. Not Rodrygo, Vinicius, Bellingham, Mbappe. Tchouaméni, Valverde is a must starter for me. And of course, maybe Toni Kroos and Camavinga can be the first guy off the bench in midfield, because I can trust him to turn the game, impact the game, midfield, left back. So Camavinga can be the first player off the bench. Of course, Rodrygo in attack, or maybe if we have to switch it up a bit. So Camavinga and Rodrygo will be the first players off the bench, and then maybe I guess Diaz and Goulet will maybe get minutes here and there, which is a bit tough on Diaz specifically. Because Diaz has been so good this season. But Diaz, he can play deep, but not as deep. He's traditionally an attacker, but he can get minutes. There's Endrick as well. So I think it's difficult to tell. In my opinion, when it comes to the best 11, I think there are guys this season who are contributing that's going to be so far down the pecking order, like Diaz and Joselu. So I think it's going to be similar to 16-17, where we do so well and we win so many titles, but then the following year, someone will leave if I'm being honest. They're all going to stay and fight for their place next season, let's be honest. But because Madrid, it's not like Madrid need to sell, so they're going to stay and fight for their place next year. But the following year, after we see how things goes, then we're going to have a look at what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, with those specific, let's talk about some specifics, because I think Vinny's been training for this role, and obviously he's had inconsistencies this season. But you've seen that when he's firing, he is firing. This is probably his best performances this season are probably the best performances I've seen from Vinny. So you can see the potential there in this current role, to which I can see that Carlo Ancelotti's clearly done this to perhaps have Vinny adapt to Mbappe. You can see that Vinny. This is probably why Carlo Ancelotti's introduced this new role for Vinny, where he's playing a little bit closer to the middle, so that you can interchange between Mbappe based on match situation and obviously fluidity. So all of this stuff is going to come into play next season when Vinny's playing with Kylian, and so you look at that and it's brilliant. And I think Vinny's obviously now got that bit of versatility, which before he didn't really have. I think Rodrygo, we've obviously just talked about, and I think Rodrygo is going to be fine for next season, at least at minimum. I think Jude Bellingham is probably going to go back to a little bit more of a deeper role, but Jude looks natural in every single role he plays. So this guy's going to be fantastic, and hopefully it's a Ballon d'Or season coming up, and hopefully he wins the Ballon d'Or. In terms of Endrick, I don't have a problem with Endrick, to be totally honest. Next season, I think he's going to be completely fine. I've seen someone being concerned about Endrick's minutes. It's like, well, when Mbappe turns 30, Endrick's going to be 22. So it's just like, it's a problem, but it's also not a problem. Like Endrick's so young, and people will forget that. And Endrick is so young, because when Endrick's entering his prime, Mbappe is going to be realistically, that's in, let's say 10 years time, Mbappe is going to be 35. So you're talking about Endrick's still got such a long career ahead of him. It's just like he's on a different timeline from everyone else in this squad, to be totally honest. So I have no problems with Endrick. Brahim Diaz, I think he will accept being a squad player. I don't think he's got the credit in the bank to ask for a starting role, and I don't think I think he knows that he's not a starter. So I think I don't have any problems with Brahim Diaz. I don't think Brahim Diaz will have any problems with that either, as long as he is playing minutes. And then Joselu, I think Joselu is just I would sign him. I think Joselu, and I think people have made a lot about it, saying that Joselu won't accept it. I just think age 34, I think he is now. 1.5 million. Yeah, so he's in the latter stages of his career. At this point in his career, I don't think he's going to be going ahead and trying to push for a move to Arsenal or something. I think he would accept just seeing out his career with Real Madrid, and that would be just perfect for him. I think the best move he's probably going to get is a mid-table Spanish side, maybe a top an upper table Spanish side. But I think personally, I would keep Joselu, because you can never have that type of guy who's just gonna get his head onto everything and just make sure, because the rest of the guys up front, they do not head the ball. Vinny does not head the ball. Rodrygo does not head the ball. Brahim Diaz does not head the ball. Mbappe doesn't really head the ball. Endrick does, but he's tiny, and so these guys aren't really going to get their head on the ball. So Joselu provides us with something completely different, and so I would pay that 1.5 and get that deal done. With Arda Güler, now I've seen a lot of speculation on a potential loan, and I wouldn't be against it, to be totally honest. I just think there isn't a pathway for him next season, and I just think he is really talented. If he was just to go spend 1 year at Bayer Leverkusen, you just think that would do so much for him and so much for the credit that he already has. So I think, I would send Arda Güler on a 1 year loan. Maybe, and if you can't guarantee him the minutes, I would send him on a loan just to get in those minutes. So for me, those are the situations. Have I missed anyone? I don't think I've missed anyone. I think Alvaro Rodriguez and Nico Paz, I think these two should get themselves on loan immediately. I think there is no way they can stay next season. I think if you are a Real Castilla product, I don't understand why you just don't ship yourself straight away on loan, because these guys are never going to play next season. So if you're Nico Paz, if you're Alvaro Rodriguez, get yourselves on loan immediately. Do not stay. Do not think you can stay at the club, because you can't. There is no pathway for them. They have to go out on loan and impress elsewhere. So that's those are my thoughts on those attackers. What are your thoughts on them?
I must admit, you're spot on with all of that. If I'm being honest, a lot of these also comes down to like who has to fight for a place in the national team. I guess Joselu, Diaz. I guess maybe most likely Joselu. He might look for an opportunity elsewhere if he sees that a team is interested in him, especially after a good season. Maybe I think he might take 2 good years or 3 good years at a good team elsewhere compared to 1 year on the bench. I'm barely playing at Madrid. If I'm still, I'm taking this year as an opportunity to boost my stock and get a good contract elsewhere. Maybe he might go to Saudi or something like that and get a good contract.
There is no way.
You know, if I'm being honest, if I'm still, I'm taking that opportunity because you're getting this is a year for him. He's not going to play constantly any other year. He's not going to start many matches any other year. So for me, I'm taking a 3-year contract at a good team or at a high pay club, and this is the year for me to maybe score an important goal. You know, maybe he might score a goal to imagine if he scores a winning goal in the Champions League after coming on. I think he can just maybe hang up his boots or just take or decide off in the sunset as a Madrid.
I would be so happy if Joselu scores the final goal. I would be so. Yeah, that was the guy, him or Lucas Vazquez.
Yeah, I think more Joselu. I don't think Lucas is seeing the field in the Champions League final. Carvajal gets injured. But I think Joselu on this squad, I think he can see the field with Diaz. I think he's versatile. Endrick, he's still young, and Vinicius and Rodrygo were bench players and maybe missed out 2 games before they got 1 game when they just came in. So I think that's good for them. With Goulet, I think after this season he might become a bit more impatient next season. So you have to factor that into consideration. With Rodrygo, he might go back to the same role he had in the last 2 seasons, starting half of like maybe 2/3 of the games and coming on in the next third of the games. So yeah, a lot has to do with maybe players, what offers they get. I think if you are an outside team like Arsenal or maybe Liverpool or Chelsea or Spurs looking in, or even Dortmund or these teams that are good but not on the level of Madrid, of course. I'm looking at Madrid with razor eye sharpness because you can get a top player, who can be willing to come into your team. If I'm being honest.
Yeah, Chelsea offer us 200 million for Camavinga in 2 years' time. Let's see let's talk.
Yeah, and of course with the Castilla guys as well. If Nico Paz, Rodriguez, Icababo, he might go back to Leverkusen, but all these guys, I think that's it for them. Unfortunately, because Pula isn't going to get minutes, Paz isn't going to get any minutes. If Joselu isn't going to get any minutes, and Endrick is going to struggle for minutes, then Rodriguez isn't getting any minutes. So I don't think Endrick will struggle for minutes.
I think he's the only natural striker out there.
No, what I meant is that if he is going to maybe bench, then he's going to be the first player off the bench, and Rodrygo can play as a 9. So Rodriguez, I think that's it for him, unfortunately. And similar to Nico Paz, if all these guys are still there, I think if I'm Nico Paz, I'm leaving next season because he had a good goal against Napoli, and I think his stock has gone up. So Rodriguez, his stock has gone down, but he still has enough credit in the bank to get a good deal like Latasa.
I think then Osasuna would be happy to sign him, 100%.
Yeah, like similar to Latasa. Some of these guys can go to Girona. Some of these guys can make a good team. I think Peter was smart to leave.
Yeah.
I have no idea what's going on at Castilla now, but yeah, so much of a mess. I think he needs to go not because he's doing poorly or anything, but I think he's done what he has to do with this Castilla team. I don't think he can do more.
Yeah.
Let maybe Amador come up. But Xabi Alonso made the wise decision and left. I think he should do the same. Nothing is stick for him, but he's done what he can do. All of these players, Martin, all of these guys should just take the opportunity to leave, and Castilla next year should be like a transition, in my opinion. But because next year, if I'm being honest, we need top players at Madrid, and these guys are good for the future, and then we can sell them on and buy back clauses. Like, never know what can happen. Football is unpredictable, so So that's it for me in relation to who Mbappe can impact. But hopefully, if I'm being honest, I won't hold it against anyone if they leave. If, for example, Rodrygo gets a good offer, let's say from Manchester City or maybe even, I don't know, it's difficult to understand why they would leave, but I supported Odegaard's decision to leave Madrid. I'm sure you'd have known that because I wanted him to play, but he wasn't getting that. Now he's a captain of Arsenal, and in my opinion, I believe that's better.
Yeah, 100%.
That's better than him being an average player because he's not Camavinga, where Camavinga can be important defensively and then recycle possession and drive the ball forward. Odegaard is a player who has to be on the ball. His quality, that's his quality. He's in spaces on the ball constantly. He's not going to get that at Madrid. So I think he made the right choice, and I won't hold it against anyone else if they do the same.
Yeah, I mean, one last thing I want to talk about is the pressing in terms of defensive contribution. I think a lot of people have made a lot about that, and especially tactical as well. Tactically, I think people have made, Vinny plays on the left, Mbappe plays on the left, Rodrygo plays on the left, all these guys play on the left, Bellingham drifts to the left, all of these guys play on the left. I don't think that's a problem. The best players will play, and the best player, Jose Mourinho is the one who said, if you're a manager, you're not coaching these players how to play football. You're coaching them where to play, how to play in a particular system. Carlo Ancelotti is probably one of the best at doing that, and I just think you just let these guys play. They'll figure it out themselves. They're good enough players to figure it out themselves. They're intelligent enough to figure it out themselves. They know how to do it. They know how to play, and I just don't think that's a problem in terms of defensive contribution. They've compared it to the Messi, Neymar, Mbappe trio. I just don't think is comparable at all, because Messi and Neymar, for one thing, they were both really old at that point, obviously, and they're not going to run. Everyone knew they were not going to run, and the people behind them, in terms of Verratti, Idrissa Gana Gueye, these guys aren't exactly great midfielders. You look at the guys behind Vinny, Rodrygo, Mbappe. They will be fantastic midfielders, and they will have plenty of engine in them. So that's not going to be a problem. And in terms of Vinny, the only reason Vinny hasn't been pressing for the last 2 years is because of the fact that Carlo doesn't want him to press. Carlo doesn't want him to track back. Carlo wants him to just stay up and run after the ball when it's passed to him, and try and make something happen only in attack. Rodrygo gets back, and Rodrygo defends. Jude Bellingham defends, and I reckon, I reckon Carlo Ancelotti could make Mbappe defend, which is a tough task, but I think Carlo Ancelotti is one guy who would be able to do that. So, yeah, I've really got no problems. I mean, the only thing I would say is that I think, a better fit would probably be Erling Haaland, but I just don't think, overall, you're signing Mbappe, you're not going to go wrong there, are you, to be totally honest? So, I'm just ecstatic that Mbappe's announced it finally. I thought he would drag it out, but he hasn't. He's announced it so quickly, so hopefully it's done within the next week. But I reckon he'll drag it out a few more months just to make sure that he gets an extra couple million from Real Madrid. So that's all I've got to say. Have you got anything else to say on Mbappe, maybe on the tactical side of it? But I mean, we'll talk about it in a couple months' time when eventually it comes up again.
That's it. I think after we didn't know where Bellingham would have played in a diamond formation, so I think we have to wait a bit because Ancelotti is a versatile manager. He's a bit unpredictable sometimes in a good way. So we have to wait and see tactically how he starts the season. I think we'll have to wait and see. So I think in relation to Haaland, I think Mbappe is a better player, a more commercialized player, more talented player. Haaland has been a bit quiet as of late with City. It shows that after maybe a few months, it's easier to keep Haaland quiet than keeping Mbappe quiet. So if you have to sign a better player, everyone is saying that Mbappe is a better player because 100%. It's the truth, in my opinion. Haaland is the better goal scorer, but I think he's easier to tie down. He's easier to lock down, like Odegaard did. In these big matches, like I'm sure you would have seen that Haaland's goal tally is a bit low in these big matches. Mbappe has a good track record of performing in big games. Haaland hasn't. So for me, if I'm signing a player, it's Haaland for me. That's Mbappe for me. My apologies. So if you get him, I think that's actually a good thing for Madrid. And of course, the saga would be finally over, and then we won't have to speak about it ever again, which is something I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, just a disclaimer. This is the last time I'm talking about this man. For until we get the Here We Go or the Comunicado Oficial, or David Ornstein saying, "Oh, Mbappe is done." This is the last time I'm talking about this man because we've spent too much time on this guy for the last 3 years. It's ridiculous. So yeah, that is it for the Mbappe talk, which I know a lot of people, a lot of people hate. They pretend to hate. It's like I pretend to hate Mbappe news. I pretend to hate hearing about Mbappe each week and every week by the news pages. But eventually, I will look. I will take a look at each news report as he arrived. Has anything changed? Everyone's addicted to it. Everyone can avoid it. They can avoid it, but they will continue to look at it. So yeah, that's all I got to say on Mbappe, on Rayo Vallecano as well. So yeah, that is it for today. There will be no podcast next week because I won't be here. But we will return after that. I think we've got a Valencia game in 2 weeks' time. So whether it's a preview or a review, we'll be back for that. And yeah, that is it for today. So hope you guys have enjoyed. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next week or the week after. Bye bye.